Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to talk to you about my method for how I raise my angelfish. These two that you're looking at here are a mated pair of zebra angels that I'd pulled out of the community tank. They had already laid eggs there several times, and I thought this time I'll put them in the breeding tank setup and hopefully they can raise a batch for me. That's the female there cleaning the slate already. This is following this morning's 50% water change with pure RO water. And both of their breeding tubes are down. I've been feeding them with some live white worms, and any minute, any hour now, they should start spawning on that slate. So here they are about an hour later. They're starting to make practice passes on the slate. Still no eggs, and unfortunately I had left for about an hour, and when I came back they had already laid the eggs and I missed the whole process. So because of that, I'm going to show you another pair laying their eggs in another tank here. And here's the other pair. They've already started to lay their eggs on the side of the glass this time. And that's the female against the glass there. If you look closely just behind her pelvic fins, you're going to see that little pink nub, kind of where her black bar hits the belly. And that's her ovipositor. That's where the eggs actually come out of. That's blunt and kind of short in the female and thin and pointy in the male. That's the male down below her. So when she actually starts to lay, you're going to see she's going to put her pelvic fins up against the glass, and those will be kind of her guide as to how far down she's got to go and start laying them. And that's the male's cue to come up behind her and fertilize the eggs, and he's going to keep doing that as long as she keeps laying eggs until they're all done. And then they're going to kind of hover in front of the eggs for a bit and fan them until they hatch. So now we're at the stage called wigglers, for obvious reasons. These little guys will just sit there on the slate and wiggle around, exercising their tails as they absorb their yolk sacs. The parents may move them to another location too, so just be aware of that. Don't think that they've eaten them automatically until you have a good look around. And you may want to put some filter floss over your intake of the filter like I did to prepare you for when they start becoming free swimming so they don't get sucked in there. And speaking of free swimming, here we see the parents swimming all over the tank, picking up stray fry and putting them back onto the slate. And just as fast as they do that, the fry will get off and start swimming around again and exploring their tank. So for that reason, I really don't do water changes at this time. The filter's still running, the water quality is good for a couple of days. I don't want to stress the parents or accidentally suck up any of the fry. If you do bother the parents, they're likely to eat the fry at this point in time, so I leave them alone. It's fine for a day or two. So now, a little over a week later, since they've laid the eggs, the fry are fully free swimming, and the parents will keep them in a tight little school, or in this case 2 schools, one at the top and one at the bottom, and they'll seek out any stray fries somewhere else in the tank, and they'll run after them and suck them up and spit them back into that school, and they'll protect them pretty fiercely at this point. So at this time you should be ready with your newly hatched baby brine shrimp that should have been started at least a day ago, if not 2 days ago, and you should be doing a minimum of 3 small feedings, preferably 4, even 5. You want to look at your fry's bellies, making sure that after each feeding that they're going to be full of shrimp. You can actually see their bellies turn orange, and if you don't see that, you're probably not feeding enough shrimp. And if they're not eating the shrimp, try a little crumbled up hard-boiled egg yolk. Just rub it between your fingers and make a small cloud, and watch out for the parents biting your fingers, and they'll probably eat that without any hesitation. Don't forget about the parents either. I feed them some freeze-dried California blackworms and some frozen bloodworms at this time, just in small amounts because we're not doing big water changes. And you want to keep them happy and not even thinking about munching on any of those fries. So if you've gotten to this point, you're doing something right. Keep it up. So this is one of the first times that I'm feeding these fry with brine shrimp, and you can see those parrots are really aggressive, really going after that net, even though it means them no harm, but they don't know that. I've actually seen them jump 2 inches out of the water to bite that net, so as the days go on, you want to keep feeding them. In this case, they're on the other side of the tank, so you want to feed where those fry are so they don't have to swim too far to find that food. You don't want the food getting at the bottom and fouling the tank. without too much of it being eaten. And the parents may want to take a few bites of it as well. That's fine. It's a good example for the fry. Here you can see the fry are growing quite nicely, getting a lot bigger, and this means you have to feed them even more brine shrimp. And obviously this also means you're going to have to do a little bit more of the water changes. So at this point I'm doing about 30% water changes a day. And that's after 5 feedings of shrimp. The plants help as well too. If you have plants in there, that's going to help a lot with keeping the water somewhat cleaner. You can see these guys have a healthy appetite. And here we can see that the fry are starting to develop a little bit of the longer fins, and they're swimming around the tank more independently, exploring everywhere and pecking at different surfaces looking for food. And at this point it's a good idea to start introducing some larger and new kinds of food to them to help them grow. Here I'm giving them their first feed of whiteworms. Normally I'd start with the smaller grindle worms, but since my culture crashed, I have to make do with the whiteworms. The parents love these things, and the fry surprisingly will gobble them up. As soon as they figure out that they're food, they'll inhale them. The one thing with whiteworms, people say that they've got a pretty high fat content, so I try to restrict it to once every couple days. Once every 2 days, or at the very most once a day. I don't feed these exclusively because of the fat content. So alternate feeding of whiteworms, maybe start them on some flake, maybe a little bit of beef heart at this point, along with keep going with the brine shrimp so they have their staple food. And isn't this a nice sight? The babies have finally become perfect little replicas of their parents, and you can start to see the patterns that they're going to have into adulthood somewhat, and the colors, and also any kind of defects or deformities which you may want to start calling for at this point in time. They're about dime size at this point. I like to move them into a bigger tank once they hit about nickel to quarter size. So these guys are almost there. Maybe another week or so, and they're going to look like this. Some of these guys are approaching nickel size. They're not quite there yet, but you can definitely see the patterns starting to form. And the growth rate is evident there. As you can see, the black ones at the bottom seem to grow a lot smaller than the silver ones for some reason. But they're just about ready to go into the 90-gallon tank now. And here they are now in the 90 gallons. So there's a little over 100 fish in here. So just a little less than a gallon per fish. And those are my water aging containers where the chlorine leaves the water before I do my water change. And a few of my discus for another video maybe. And these guys are going to be fed mainly beef heart from now on, with a little bit of freeze-dried bloodworms and a little bit of, freeze-dried blackworms and a little bit of frozen bloodworms. And they're going to grow like weeds. So as you look through this tank, you can probably see all the different kinds of patterns and shapes that you're going to have. And there's over 100 fish there. So there's no way that for me I'm going to keep 100 fish when they get to full size. That's going to be a handful and a lot of food. So I've pretty much got to figure out a way to get rid of most of them, except for maybe the 10, 15, maybe 20 fish that I want to keep to form breeding pairs. And once they form breeding pairs, I can sell them for some good money, or just, experiment with breeding them. So how am I going to get rid of about 80 or 90 fish? Well, I could go online, sell them on like Kijiji or Aquabid or PN Aquaria or any of those sites. I won't get very much money for them, and the trouble with that is when you try to get rid of fish that are lesser quality, when people come over and they want to buy them, they suddenly see the ones that look a lot better, and those are the ones that they want to buy, and you end up with the worst fish, the ones that you didn't want. And you could just grab the whole bunch of them that you don't want and head over to your local fish store and try to pawn them off on that, but a lot of times you'll get like $1.50 if you're lucky per fish, sometimes even 50 cents a fish, and it's really hardly worth it. So the way that I've found is the best way is I look up all my local aquarium clubs, and they usually have 2 auctions, one in the spring and one in the fall for all the clubs for the most part. And it's just a matter of waking up early on the day of the auction, having your fish ready to get bagged, and a little bit of elbow grease. You got to bag those fish and box them and actually bring them down to the auction. But I find that most of them sell, and you do get some pretty good prices. And by the end of all the round of all the auctions, you have enough money there to pay for your food, for the fish, for that whole year, maybe buy a heater or a tank, or pick up something cheap. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of what the auctions are all about here.
Next one is 1272. We have 2 black angelfish. Cards up at 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9.
Okay, here we have 2 clown, 1 black angelfish. L041. Who's going to start me off with $5 on the angels? I got 5 here. Do I have 6? I got 6. Do I have 7? I got 7. Do I have 8? I got 8. Do I have 9? I got 8, 9, 10, 11. I got 10. Do I have 11? Going once, twice, so.
Next time is 1270. We've got another large angel. Cards up at 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. Everybody's out at 6. 6 to 98. 2 clown angels. Cards up at 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 to 103.